This joint webinar between Powell 365 and ClearBox Consulting. Hello. We're going to be talking to you today about 10 tips to boost your intranet's relevance. Let me just get the housekeeping out of the way first of all. So if you want to talk to us, you can tweet at Powell 365 News or at ClearBox. And also in the GoToMeeting panel, you will see a questions area. So you can post questions there, and we'll be monitoring those and trying to pick up a few as we go through the demonstrations, and also be time at the end for more questions. Normally the first question we get asked is, will we have the slides afterwards? So let me deal with that one. Yes, we will be circulating the slides for everybody who attended in a day or two after the webinar. So my name's Sam Marshall, I'm the Director of ClearBox Consulting, and I'm with Laurent. Laurent, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello everyone, my name is Laurent Mallet, and I'm a business developer for EMEA for Powell Software.
Hi Laurent, so I'm very glad you could join us today on this. Just a little bit more about ClearBox. So we're based in the UK. We're an independent consultancy. We focus on the business side of intranets and digital workplaces. So we don't sell any technology, but we help companies devise strategies, look at governance, look at adoption, and so on. Laurent, do you want to say a little bit more about Powell?
Yes, well, thank you for having me, Sam. At Powell 365, in fact, we sell a digital workplace solution that helps you to manage all the Office 365 components and to do it with a simple tool over time, meaning that you can iterate on your intranet. It's ever evolving.
Yes, and indeed, and Powell 365 is one of the products that we reviewed in our recent Intranets in a Box report that ClearBox produces every year. And at the end of the webinar, we got an offer with a discount code for that if people are interested in it. But we're not actually here to sell intranets today, are we, Laurent? We're here to kind of help people come up with some ideas for how to make the internet more engaging. So what we'll be doing is taking you through 10 top tips. And what we had in mind for this were intranet managers, site owners, power users in Office 365, looking to do more with the SharePoint and Office 365 tools, but without buying extra add-ons or doing any coding. So everything that we're going to show you will be possible with the Office 365 or SharePoint on-premises license. There might be one or two things where it looks a bit different if you are SharePoint 2013 or even SharePoint 2010, God help you. But most of the things that we talk about will work, and if they don't, we'll mention if it's Office 365 specific. I'm going to start with the first two. And the first one is a really simple tip, but one that I think is often overlooked, and it's about adding metadata using drag and drop. So let me switch over and bring into play, if I can, a Office 365 screen. So you're all on mute, so you can't tell me if you can't see this, but Laurent can. So Laurent, can you see my screen okay?
Yes, sure, perfectly.
So far, so good. I always hate live demos because something's bound to go wrong at some point. So look, here's a simple document library. Let me just show you the home page. So this is in a demo site, but it's a modern team site. If I go to the HR documents library, you can see that we've got the usual columns, but we've also added two more for status and regions. So this is metadata that might be useful for sorting and filtering the information. Now, if I switch to a different view, and I'll show you how we create the view in a moment, but if we group by the status column, we can now see the documents as if they were in folders grouped by metadata, but they're not. It's just a way of clustering the list. Now, metadata, as we all know, is something that people hate to add because it's extra steps to go through when you just want to get the document up there and share it with your teammates. But for everybody else, it's a really useful thing to have because it improves the search results. It makes it easier to sort through and classify the documents. So I'm sure you all know that one of the things you can do is just grab a document. So I've got a dress code policy here. You can drag it into this window. You can see it says drag items to any location. But when I do that, it's going to go in as unassigned. So what I'm going to do instead is drag it into a specific folder. So let's say it's a new one and I want to upload it as a draft. When I hover over the draft, you see how it goes gray. I'm going to release, and it's uploading. And there we go, there's a dress code. And you see it's already got the draft status tag to it. I can even do it within the document library. So let's say that these legal guidelines have been uploaded. without any status. If I grab that and move it also to draft, then the legal guidelines also has that draft metadata on it. Marvelous, so far, so good. So if you're wondering how I got to this view, what I've done is I've gone into the edit view setting, but it's a little bit easier if I show you the whole library settings area. So I've gone into library settings. You can see we've got this extra column of status where we've got that pick list of draft and expired and reviewed and so on. And then I've created this view called metadata group. So you can see when I go into this, I can have specific views, which normally I recommend that you do it as a public view, so for everybody. And you can see in this view, I've selected that status column that we're using to group by metadata. And then if I scroll down, I'll try not to scroll too fast because I know it gets a bit wobbly on a webinar. There's an area called group by. So here I've said group by status. You can see there's a pick list of all the metadata. And then it's just a simple grouping. And you can also show, increase the number of lines that you show in the grouping. So with those things in place, if I just come out of that and cancel it and go back to our HR documents, you'll see it's defaulted to the other list view that we have, but now when I go down there, I can do metadata group and we see it that way. So you need to do this in order to do that drag and drop with the metadata. So in the slides, there's some instructions which we've just gone through, so you've seen all that. But it leads me to the second point, which is how do you help people search within document libraries? Now, this is relevant and useful because search on intranets, it's not like Google search where you tend to go to the global search box, you put in a term and you go straight to the page with the answer in it. It's more like buying shoes, for example, where you might go to Google, find a shoe online store, and then go to that store site and use filters such as shoe size and color and whether you're leather or synthetic and the kind of shoe that you want to filter and reduce the list of options. And then you browse through the options. So I tend to call this findability rather than search because it's a combination of navigation, search, and refining that's getting you to the answer. It's really useful within intranets because we tend to have lots of content, lots of documents which are really pretty similar. If you've got 10 products that your company makes, you're going to have thousands of references to those products in lots of different documents. So this comes in really handy when you say, why don't we gather together all of our policies and use document library-based search and navigation as a way to help people get through those policies. So let me switch back to the site again. So the first and the simplest thing to highlight is that there is a document library only search. And what I mean by that is if I just go to the home of the site and I search for employee, just note there's an employee satisfaction survey news story there. So I start typing employee and it's coming with both news and documents. But if I know I just want to go to the policy library and I do the same thing once I've navigated to that library, so this is a bit like going from Google into the front door of the shoe store. And I'm going to have to fill in because it's loading very slowly for me. Here we go. And now I search for employee. When it goes to the results page, you'll see it's only showing me document results. It's not showing me news. So implicitly what it's doing is changing the search scope and applying a filter without actually the user needing to know about filtering or anything like that at all. So this is one little tip that's quite good to teach your users about how to find things by navigating and then searching. But there's more that we can do because we've got metadata. So over here, you'll see, sorry, let me just come out of, sorry, one thing I did want to say, if you go to the classic view, so somebody who might be showing up on premises won't see this, the search box is actually a lot clearer. So the same search is now above the documents, which I actually think is better than the modern search experience. Okay, so now we're back in our document library. The other thing we can do is teach people about filters. So if you ever use, for example, Kayak or Skyscanner as a way to find flights, or indeed you use something like Amazon as a way to filter down the products, we can very quickly say, do you know what? I know that the document I'm looking for is definitely PowerPoint, and I only want to know about Americas, and I'm only interested in things that have been published. And very quickly you get down to a nice scannable list. So this works even if your document library has hundreds or even potentially thousands of items. But you might be saying, look, Sam, this is all quite sophisticated behavior, and that filter icon is a tiny little thing. I'm not sure my users are going to notice that filter icon at all. And in a lot of cases, I think you're probably right. So there's a second stage that you can do to help your users, particularly if you know there are certain filters you might want to apply. So I've created another page called HR policies. So this is a standard team site page. It's a modern site page, but the same can be done on a classic page as well. And if I do quickly go into edit mode, I'll show you what I've done. So I've added this web part here, and this is a highlighted content web part. If you're on-prem SharePoint and don't have the modern experience yet, then you can use the content query or content search web part. What I've done is set the source for this to be the HR documents library that we looked at in the first example. And I've set it to filter on the column name of status. And this is only showing it when the status equals published. So in effect, we're showing published documents here. Let me just come out of the edit view. So this is a search-based view. So if we want to create a view which is only published policies, we can drive it from the HR documents library. So I go back into the library. I'm going to go back into my metadata group view. And let's say this document, the employee handbook and the vacation policies have been reviewed and we want to publish them. So I can grab vacation policies, remember what we saw, move that over into published. I'll do the same with employee handbook, move it over into published. So it's in there, the status has changed, and then when we go back to HR policies, you'll see we've now got those extra items straight in there. So there's no publishing step here, I've just changed the metadata and I'm pulling through different things. My other tip is that if you know people might want to, for example, see the draft view, you can put a link in. So this is a link that's, it's just a simple text link. If I go into the text editor, I just added a hyperlink there. Where that link comes from is if I go into HR documents and I create that draft only view, then I can grab that URL and use that URL and put it into our published page. So now when I'm on the published page again, I click on go to draft documents. It opens up a new tab, but now we've got that filter view only showing the draft documents, and quite handily it opens up that filter pane. So that's a good way of making people more aware that the pane exists. So that's my two. I've got 3 more to come, but I'm going to hand over to Laurent now, and he can do the next ones. So Laurent, I'm going to pass control to you.
Thank you, Sam. So I think you should see my screen in a few seconds.
Yeah, there we go. I can see it, Laurent.
So first tip we have on the list is to use Microsoft Forms. So as you may know, there's multiple new components, in fact, in Office 365. To see them on your SharePoint environment, in fact, you have to go to that burger menu, and you should see, well, I just pinned that component here, but if you don't find the Forms component, then you can go to All App here and search for Forms, and automatically you can then add it to your launcher to be available as a shortcut here. So basically, Microsoft Forms is a pretty rich tool which allows you, when you hit the button, to go to a complete service to create forms. And basically those forms could be created in simple clicks. It's also, I mean, Power users can use those kind of tools. So for example, if I took the forms I created, I can start a new one, but let's take this one. In fact, this is a simple editor mode where I edit, in fact, the title of the employee survey here, and then I can start to add question to my survey. And depending on the type of things you want to ask to your users, you can say, okay, I want the rating. So let's say I want the scale of 10, and then maybe put numbers here. So I can ask this question. Is this question required or not? You can set it as an option here, and you can also move question up and down to be able to have the right flow in terms of the interview you want to get. Interesting things about forms is that every response of that form then goes to a simple Excel spreadsheet. So you can easily export, in fact, the responses and analyze them in Excel. By the way, this Excel file could also automatically be saved to the OneDrive of the end users that issued the form. So basically, then you created that form and you're happy with it. You want maybe to share, to add another, the date, etc. field on the form, and you want to share it now on your intranet. So what you can do is automatically then you see there's a share button on the top of the screen here. This share button will allow you to take what we call an embed code. So it's a pretty simple code that you can copy. In fact, here, clicking on this button, it will go to your clipboard. So basically, on the other side, we have a standard SharePoint site. So I will show you the classic experience. So I choose the standard SharePoint site, and you may know them. I think it's 2013 version or something like that. It started really early with this design. In the edit mode of the site, you can edit here the site using this little button here, and you will switch to the edit view. In that view, then you can add any what we call web parts or components or widget to your page. So this is the simple site. When you create it, you have those components automatically coming here into the page, and you can add your own web part. So to insert the form in this page, in fact, what I have to do is do an insert of an embed code. But I'm not a developer, I just did a copy and paste. So doing that copy and paste could easily, in fact, insert the form in the page. So then I can change, of course, that to be more wider or higher, depending on what you want to do. And as soon as I answer the question, and I have the option, of course, to have this question answered only once by the users on the form. I didn't set that on. So, but anyway, when I submit the results, then automatically, in fact, if I go back to my forms, my Microsoft Forms interface, I see that I have a little notification here saying that I have a new response. And if you look at the Excel spreadsheet, then I download it here. It will open in my Excel workbook. You will see that every question of the form is a column. So of course the start time of the survey is here, and the completion time, the email of the user, and then question 1, 2, and 3. And if you put the right wording, you have the questions, and of course the detail of the answers. So then you can of course start iterating with Excel, do some statistics, graphs, etc.
So to my simple mind, Laurent, what's nice there is that it's already filled in the email details, so you don't have to do the basic questions of what's your name and
absolutely
the person logged in. We already know quite a lot about them, which is, it saves a lot of work. I guess it's rubbish for anonymous surveys, that's all.
Absolutely, and of course it relies on Office 365 user and password you enter at the beginning of the session. So automatically Microsoft Forms took the information and filled the Excel columns for me. So that was the first, the fourth tip. Here, the third tip, sorry, to start using form. Another interesting thing is to add other content coming from, for example, Twitter. So in the slide note here, you'll see there's a URL you can use, in fact, from Twitter to go and do a little bit the same tricks as I've just done with the forms, but not to include a form, but maybe a Twitter feed. So specifically, if you go to this URL, in fact, you'll see that the Sam Marshall account is then in the URL. So I can embed, for example, the timeline of Sam. So automatically Twitter gives me a preview of the timeline, and I can easily copy the same way I did just before with the form, copy that, and maybe paste it. So I'm gonna edit the page here. Exactly the same methodology is used. So
if I'd known you were going to do that, I would have tweeted something much more profound than does anybody want to be here. Thank you.
No. Sam will be on every page. Basically, so then you'll see that automatically you see the end results, and it's pretty nice because Twitter's done a great job also in its API. You have exactly the same for LinkedIn page or Facebook pages. You can find surely on the internet some methodology to do that, or LinkedIn or Twitter will give you the copy code button for you to be able to embed that in your portal.
And I guess one of the uses for this then is to have a search of, for example, mentions of your company or mentions of a brand that you could bring into a team page. Is that right?
Absolutely, yeah. I didn't want to put the Office 365 news account, sorry, the Powell 365 news account, but I could have done with the Powell 365 tweets. Then this is our fourth tip, sorry. So it names we use flows to bring the outside in. I'm going to try to find the same thing for Facebook. It could be also interesting to integrate that in your portal. This is a major feature, and personally as an end user, I love it because I use it all the time. You may know that in Office 365 you have a space for storing documents, and there's basically two of them. One is the OneDrive. This is like the personal drive of the users. In fact, the My Document, I would say, if you're going to desktop environment, this could be your My Document. This is where you store, in fact, your files, your personal files. But also in SharePoint, you can store files that will be shared with teams, with groups of people, on the intranet, everywhere. In fact, you need to add maybe a PowerPoint that's explaining that's doing the presentation of your company, or maybe a procedure for HR that is actually in Office format, so or any PDF format. So you need the recipient to store those files. Personally, we use that internally to store all the documents related to the presentation for the customers, the technical documentation, and so on. So we're sharing all that content, all that knowledge inside of SharePoint document library. So what Microsoft has done, which is a great thing, is release. You may notice in the bar, in fact, I have a OneDrive, which is personal. I mean the Hotmail OneDrive, the old account I have from Hotmail since the years, and also the professional OneDrive. So this icon comes when you go, in fact, to the page here. Let's say I will just save that. Let's save it. And if you go to the document library itself, for clarity, I will go to the full screen mode. Then you can see this little sync button. In fact, this little sync button will then open your OneDrive application that's on your desktop and will synchronize all the documents on your PC or your Mac. Also, it's working on Mac for you, Sam. I'm not connected to this environment as a user now. I'm using another credentials to demo for the webinar, but without showing sensitive information, I can show you the results here. So basically, this is the name of the mother company, and you have all the document library. But every document library, for example, the presentation, the sales presentation we are doing in the US format for the product are all stored here. So every time I go to a customer, then I'm not going to my document or my desktop and having my presentation. This is not the same. This is not the latest one. This is my presentation. I didn't share it with the team, etc. With that mechanism, you can centralize, in fact, the documentation, synchronize it to the PC. And in fact, as you see here, if I hit the, well, it's in French, sorry, but you have the same, of course, in English. It's go to the online version, in fact. It will open, in fact, the same document library here with all the folder and all the documents inside.
So also, this is a bonus tip that we're teaching a little bit of French as we go. I like that.
Sorry about that. Anyway, there's another thing that was released maybe 1 or 2 months ago. Is this small icon here? If you see here, this green and plain icon means that the documents are stored locally. Because if you have maybe terabytes of documents, then you don't want all the documents to be synchronized to your PC. You want to be able to choose the folders you want to synchronize. So for example, this one is cloud only. You can see it with the icon, meaning that I can navigate through the document and automatically the OneDrive client will take the document into my PC and I'll be able to consult it online or offline, sorry, if I'm on the train, for example. So this is really, really powerful feature, and a feature that we were expecting from Microsoft since months is this capability to browse the document library with terabytes of files, but not storing offline all the files on my PC. So I can really selective sync the folder or the file I want. So if I say, okay, I want this to be always on my PC, then automatically I have this option. It's in French, toujours conserver. It's always keep that on my PC. Here, if I translate it and I say, okay, I hit this, and this little icon is starting to go to the presentation and downloading the content. I'm going to pause it because I think it's going to have a megabytes is going to synchronize. But anyway, I paused the synchronization, so you don't see the icon now. But this is a really, really powerful capability that allows us to be on the same page in terms of content. So same thing.
Maybe,
yeah.
Maybe it's just worth, while it's still fresh in people's mind, there were 3 kinds of icons though, weren't there? So there was a cloud one, meaning it's only in the cloud. There was a green circle with a check mark inside, and then there was like a filled green circle.
Exactly.
So I think the one like notebooks means it's been accessed recently, so it's currently cached on your PC.
It's cached,
whereas
exactly.
The Powell one, the solid green one, means it's always available on your PC.
Always available for the business review with my boss. The pipe is always on my PC. Exactly.
Yeah. And so the other ones that you've only accessed recently, in time they will disappear again off your PC if you don't access them. Is that how it works? It frees
exactly.
Basically. Yeah. Okay.
Basically, so what you see is the same view as in SharePoint, but you have that capability to have it offline or to dynamically. Office is enough smart to cache the file you just edited, for example.
Yeah.
So this is really, really a killer feature if you want to share content with other people in a centralized manner, and that's what all about SharePoint, and also the metadata tips you showed before is really powerful to classify documents, but also sometimes you need to be mobile, you need to go on the road, and you need to access the last presentation. So the OneDrive Sync is a really, really nice feature.
Yeah, I find it handy even if I'm just on a slow connection. So we've got clients where they're using Office 365 in China, and just the loading of the page is very slow. So they're saying, well, with OneDrive, we can sync it so it's very quick to access because it's a local copy. And then it doesn't matter if it takes 3 or 4 minutes to upload when you save your your modified file back to SharePoint because you're not having to load the SharePoint pages to navigate down to the document library.
And you have also option for your company administrator to limit that if if they
to make
don't.
it slow again. Yes.
You can make it really slow. So for example, I can say I want 20K now because I'm presenting, so I don't want to be disrupted by the bandwidth to be disrupted.
I don't think the Mac version does that, but the fancy Windows one does.
Not yet. Maybe next month, Sam.
yeah. Always a poor relation.
Well, so really that feature could help you also to organize content and to be productive as a team in terms of sharing the latest version of the tools, the latest version of the Excel file, the latest version of the presentation. You want everybody on the same page. So this is really a killing feature. Also, another tip, I mean, this is working on every version of SharePoint, and it's often, we'll see maybe later the version, more evaluated version with Power BI, integrating a dashboard, etc. But as you may know, lots of reporting happens in Excel. Lots of things in terms of the end users, in fact, have the power with Excel to present the results and also to explain it the right way. With graphs. So what you can do to take those knowledge and to display it on your portal is also really easy to do using the SharePoint, the standard SharePoint component. So let's say I want to edit that page, and let's remove that for clarity, okay? And let's say now I want to insert a graphic that's in this Excel file here. If I hit, I will open another window just to show you the file. Well, I'm in edit mode, so let's say, okay, I will open the file so you can see what's in the file. Well, it's a really powerful sample, with lots of data, etc. So I only have maybe this small table, and with this table, I can do really great graphics and, to, for example, to show the repartition of data between different products. Or, well, Excel is really rich about, in terms of features, about data, importing, exporting, cleaning, etc. formulas. So what I can do to render this is insert, but I'm not inserting an embed code. I will insert a web part that it's in the business data section here, and this is called Excel Web Access. So basically, you add this web part to your page, and then in the selection pane, then you can go and navigate, browse into the file in the site. So let's say in the documents library, in this library, I will take the Contoso file, the Excel Contoso file, this one, yes, it's okay. I insert that, and automatically, in fact, I can name an item. So because as you may notice in Excel, in fact, you can name cells, name the range of cells, or name the graphs. So I'm not sure, but I think it was, I don't remember how I named it. Anyway, I think it's products. Well, okay. Well, let's take it like that. It's okay. So now I'm going to render the whole sheet, but I can just specify the name of that component. I will edit that in Excel, maybe, just to understand what's the name behind the scene. So it will open it in Excel.
So while you get that sorted, Laurent, I mean, a couple of things that really appeal to me about this. One is that people are much more familiar. I think we're getting a nice chart using Excel rather than trying to make it happen within SharePoint itself. So it's about letting people work with familiar tools and then bring it to the foreground.
Exactly.
And the other one is that I've often seen, for example, weekly project status reports where they have the red, amber, green RAG status of progress using a Excel template. And then when all the project managers do their weekly status reports, they tend to export it into a PowerPoint deck to show the stakeholders. So that PowerPoint deck becomes static content unit. It's that one-off snapshot which is uploaded onto SharePoint, but it's quite a painful thing for stakeholders to then go and see. Whereas if you left the data in SharePoint and put that table as a name table, as Lauren's about to do, onto the page, then you can have something that's much more like a dashboard view. You could have 10 projects, each with their own Excel web part, all showing the same red, amber, green status. And if your stakeholders want to see more about what's going on, they can then access directly that Excel sheet and go and see all the other, for example, tabs in the sheet to work out why the red thing is looking red. But now I have a very nice pie chart view because
thank you, Sam.
The customer pie.
Thank you so much, Sam, for helping me in this. I just forgot, this reference. So interestingly, people may not know that in Excel, any range of cells, table, and so on could have a name, and you can reference that. So that's what we're using here. We just name the chart the customer pie, and we can reference it in the name item section and the parameter of the web part. You can also, of course, give no toolbar, no navigation. There's lots of options. Let's say I don't want any toolbar here, and hit OK, and save the page, and then it's done. You have the Excel report here. You can also, interestingly, you can also have a view of all available objects in the file when you click on the title. That's a nice feature.
I learned something. I'm so glad I attended the webinar now.
Well, to be honest, I learned it also when I built it because I think it's a new feature. It's an Excel services new feature. I think they released just that. So interesting. As soon as you name the tables, the graphics, etc., then you're able to navigate with that using a standard SharePoint interface. Okay, so next tips, and maybe it's the seventh one. So we want to integrate more robust, I would say, dashboarding or business intelligence data into our portal. As you may know, people, if you want to get audience on your portal, people love to see figures, love to see graphs, and also navigate in their data. So we see that often when we add some graphs like I've shown you with Excel or some reporting, then all the users, for example, a sales organization could follow a pipeline. So if the entry point is the portal, then you'll get the maximum audience because the end user will go to the portal for this tool. And also you can put some news on the side, to give them information about the groups, the company, etc. So to do that, in fact, I'm going to do it with modern experience. You have the same method using the standard SharePoint, but it's a little bit more tricky because there's JavaScript involved, etc. So just to keep things simple, and because this is the future of what we will have in SharePoint, what you see here is a Power BI dashboard, in fact. That's what we call Power BI dashboard or report. The idea behind that is you have a data model that is where you can navigate with the products, for example. And as soon as you navigate into the industry or the products, etc., every graph, every component on the page will react accordingly. So here you have, for example, an analysis on the industry margin, and you can compare the revenue and the gross margin on the same chart. And you have also, powerful tooltips that helps you to look at the data behind the scene. You can do drill down. You can do many things with Power BI. This is a really, really powerful tool that allows you to take also data from multiple sources, from Excel file, from a database on premise, from on premises, from I don't know, from a Twitter feed, from any data. You plug a Power BI in it, and then you construct what we call a model that will allow you to navigate. So, for example, if I edit, let's say I want to edit this report at a new page or a new analysis, then you'll see that the interface is a little bit different, and I have the component here in my page. So let's say I want to see, I don't know, the revenue, let's say. So I'll automatically get the graph, and I can view by products. And automatically this graph will be generated. So the first thing to do is, of course, to get the data and build this model, and then a subject matter expert, you could then lay out the graphics, lay out the pages, etc., to be for the end user to be able to navigate through the data. So really powerful Power BI. So it's a really powerful solution that could also add value to your intranet, because seeing those figures is a guarantee to get lots of audience for you. Well, what Microsoft did with Power BI is they released a thing called Embed in SharePoint Online. So this is a feature is currently was in preview, but is not in preview now. So basically, what it gives you is a link. A link you just have to copy and embed it to your modern team site. So here I have a modern team site. I can edit that page. Okay, so I have my news, my corporate news, etc. And I want to add in this page, maybe just after the news, I want to add this report. So what I can do is look at the gallery of components Microsoft provides me, and I can automatically, clicking on this report, in fact, paste the link here, and automatically it will take my identity, my credentials. I only see the data I am able to see, of course, and I can say, okay, I don't want this page of the report. I want the executive scorecard, because this is targeted. Oh, well, this is targeted for mobile, so you can see you have a mobile view. But let's say I want the industry margin one, and I want the user to be able to navigate in this page or not. So I can show or not the navigation pane. I mean the small here you saw you could change page before, but so and I want to use the filter yes or no. Okay, so pretty straightforward. I hit publish here on my page, and I'm able to render my news, my company news, and also render a Power BI report inside of my portal. So really interesting to get audience, to get people, to get traction on your portal here by showing this Power BI report on your page. This is also available on any modern team site that's provisioned. So if you have a modern team site, then you can add this web part. If you have the standard SharePoint experience, I mean the publishing experience or the on-premise experience for SharePoint, there's a lots of articles on the internet to explain how to do that. It's a little bit tricky. There's scripts, JavaScript, etc. to do that, but in fact, it's maybe Microsoft will release the same version of that web part for SharePoint on-premise. So, and so we hope that it will come soon.
Yeah.
And then I'll then make Sam as a presenter now.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So we can continue with the other tips.
Okay, so I'm now on to tip number 8, which is about communication sites to bring information to life. So communication sites released earlier this year. I think the name is a little bit misleading, because if you're used to intranets and you're from an internal communications background, you tend to think about the news element. And actually, I don't think the news element is the strongest feature in communication sites. So I'd encourage you instead to think about them as a really easy way to build and manage microsites. So these are sub-sites within your intranet that focus on one particular topic. And it might be, for example, about an event. So Here I've got on the left a Future Leaders Opportunity Program, an event where you can imagine all your fast track managers are coming together for 3 or 4 days of workshops and so on. Or it might be about a campaign. If you just launched your new corporate values, usually there's lots of imagery and stories that you want to release. They're really ripe for a team site where you can bring them together in one section, maybe even with a slightly different look and feel to the rest of your intranet if you're introducing a new visual language, for example. Or you could have a communication site where each one is in effect the internal brochure for your product. So if you make tractors, then you might have a range for your budget tractors as one communication site, and another communication site for your heavy industry tractors and so on. So I put together a example of that event-based site using communication sites. Get rid of that. So the page is really flexible. And what's on here, you can see there's a number of different design styles. So this web part here is the hero web part, which is basically large images with links. You can have news, so you can imagine we've launched our Leadership Opportunity Program, and then as news breaks about changes to the agenda, or who's giving the closing keynote, or what activities are going to be available, you can add those as news stories. So the big advantage here is that in the past, I think people might have done this by sending out a whole series of emails, which gets really fragmented, because to piece together the whole picture of what's happening, you've got to work your way back through your inbox. Or they might have done a PowerPoint deck or a PDF file, which makes it really hard to update and really hard to include things like videos or rich imagery and layout that you might want to have. We can also have events. So there's a calendar we can have for each calendar entry. You can put maps and things in there. What's also nice is that people can then add that as an ICS file to their Outlook calendars as well. And lastly, we can use what I've done here is this is just a film strip image web pass. But what I've done with it is that each image can act as a hyperlink, so it gives you a nice tile-based approach. I've created a when you arrive page and hyperlink to it for what's you on arrival, and then you could fill this out with, again, as much rich layout as you like. And indeed, even on this page, because it's a modern section, I can put in more maps, I can put in events again, I can do the forms and so on that Laurent showed us earlier. So any of this is possible all within the page. And lastly, you can, if you really want to, have a big map. It's fairly limited because you can only put one push pin in there, so it's more of a visual thing than a functional thing. What I didn't show on this, but which is possible, is that there's a web part for a Yammer group feed as well. So it could be for our event, for example, or if you've got your tractor page, you also want to have an associated Yammer group, and you can make that appear in maybe 1/3 of the page as an embedded discussion. Tip number 9 is using Delve. So Delve has been pitched as this kind of serendipity thing where if you're really bored in the morning, you can go and see what everybody else in your workplace is doing. Honestly, I don't see many people doing that. We're all too busy, aren't we? So instead, I would pitch Delve as a way to navigate to material when the only bit of metadata you can remember is the person's name. And that's a much more appealing message, I think, than finding out what people are doing. So here's Delve in our demo environment. When I go to the home page, there's lots of kind of things that have changed, which is not so useful. But this is really true. Yesterday, a colleague of mine said, "Oh, Sam, we got a new inquiry from a customer. I've created a OneNote page about it. Go and have a look." And I had got no idea where he created that OneNote page because it wasn't in any of the notebooks that I got open. It could have been on SharePoint. It could have come from Teams. So I went to his name and I looked at the recent documents that we had in common. And the first thing there was the OneNote. So that was a lot easier because I could just navigate by who it was that I knew. And here in this mock example, you can see I've gone to Miriam. And if I go to all the documents, I can filter it and say, only show me attachments. So again, if I know that Miriam had emailed me a document recently, this can be a a much easier way of getting to it rather than trying to do a search and a filter of both the name and the attachment of Miriam within Outlook. The mobile experience is quite nice in Delve as well. So because it can be quite hard to do searches on a mobile device with a small screen and keyboard, the Delve app, for example, lets you navigate by people. So here I'm looking at my colleague Fiona, and these are all the documents that Fiona's been working on recently. Even for my own stuff, sometimes I use the My Work tab because I know I've changed a document recently. Maybe I'd change it on the desktop, and then when I'm out and about with my phone, it's a very quick way to get to it, whether it's on OneDrive or SharePoint. And then my last one is just to kind of reinforce some of the things that we've been saying already, some of the embed codes that Laurent has been showing you. And that's that you don't have to be limited to uploading PowerPoint files as a way to share content. So let's go back to our document one last time. And we're coming to the end. So if you've got any questions, people, please do post them in the Q&A. We've got 5 minutes at the end to do that. So here we've got this PowerPoint on career development, which is, it's quite nice and visual. So if I just open it in preview mode, it's going to open up. What I'm going to do is, just like we did with the forms, they're going to look for that embed code. So here's a slide deck here. And if I go to the little dots, again, I see the embed. And what's nice about PowerPoint is that you can pick how big you want the display to be on the page. So that's 610 by 367 pixels. If I wanted a different size in mind, I can even go to this text here and put my own numbers in if I wanted to change the format. But let's say I'm happy with that. So I'm going to copy that code. I'm going to go to HR Documents. And then I've created a page called HR Legacy, ready for my career development guide. Don't worry about the stuff in yellow, that's just because I'm an admin. And then when I edit the page, I can go insert, just as we saw before, embed code. I paste in that code, go to insert, and it's put in what it called a snippet, so that's the embed code. So now if I go to publish, where are we? And it might just need a moment to refresh. That's worked. There we go. And now directly on the page, we can see those slides. I think that's a lot more engaging as a way to present visual material than just having a link to download the file. So let's just have a quick look. There was a question on number 8 from Pierre. Thank you, Pierre. What do you not recommend communication sites for? So they're not good for corporate type news management. And the reason for that is that you've got no control over when things get published. If I just pop back to our, let me just find that future leaders thing again. Okay, so here's the news web part here. If I go to edit, I'm going to the news section. So I can change the format, I can make it a list, I can make it side by side, but there's nothing in here that actually lets me rearrange the order of the stories and say, oh, actually, I want to pin this one to the top. When I come out of this for discard changes, I go to add. When I create a news story, it's really just a page with a date stamp on it. So there's no workflow around this. There's no approval. There's nothing to say, I want to create it and set it to publish at 9 AM tomorrow morning. If you're used to any kind of workflow around your publishing, or if indeed you've got a corporate intranet build on SharePoint, you probably built something much nicer as a publishing site instead. Also, you'll note that this navigation at the top, it's site specific. So there's no kind of portal-wide navigation that you can do at the moment. Though there is something called Hub Site coming next year that will allow you to do that. Tom Chippendale, one of our clients from Wessex Water. Hi, Tom. Got a question for you, Laurent. If you'd like to find out who is looking at my internet pages rather than just page hits, is Power BI the best way to show these stats in Office 365? What do you reckon?
Well, you have, of course, Power BI would be a great way to do that, because there's a way to export the stats for a SharePoint site and plug it to Power BI. But you can also use the new site usage page. So Microsoft gives you a new experience for site usage on Office 365 with a lot more detailed stats, as you may before you had small statistics, I would say, in the content. But I can show you, maybe I will just start see my screen. Well, there's not a lot of statistics in this site because this is the demo site.
I need to make you presenter, Laurent. People are looking at my screen, so I'll make you presenter. There you go. If you want to share your screen again.
I'm sharing my screen now. Can you see it? Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
You're showing the same thing that I did, but just pink.
Well,
does that show you who though?
Yeah, not really. You don't have a lot of detail, but you can see the number of views and what's also the file that are shared externally. So, well, I think this is only the beginning of what Microsoft will release in terms of statistics. If you want a more detailed statistic, for sure, you should go to export the data behind the scene, behind that, and then import it or in Excel, and you do a report, as I shown you, maybe a web part that show only a pie, a simple chart, or a more advanced thing with Power BI that will allow you to take into account the time, that compare maybe the months over months, do complex calculation about the percentage of growth and so on. All those indicators you can create in Power BI. It's richer. In Excel, you can do the same, but it's a little more work to do. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, in our SharePoint Intranet in a Box report, and maybe if you can make me a presenter again, Laurent, I'll just show that quickly. Sure. Sure. We find about half the vendors now are customizing Power BI to do things like ready-made reports on who is going to pages. The other ones, they still recommend using a dedicated analytics tool like HairPoint, Web Trends, or some of the newer ones like Swoop Analytics for the social side.
Yeah, I can't make you a presenter, Sam, but
yeah, it's all right. I got it.
Okay, sorry.
So just to wrap up, I mentioned at the start the SharePoint Intranets in a Box report that we do. We launched it 2 weeks ago. It covers 34 products. Powell is one of them, as you can see on the cover, but we look at 33 other ones. Very comprehensive, entirely independent viewpoint. Because you've come along to this webinar, we're very grateful. So you can get 10% off with that code SPR SharePoint Report 18 Powell, and we will share the slides if you want that. And finally, Ron, do you want to just say a closing word about Powell 365?
Yeah, well, in fact, I think we took a lot of time for this webinar, so I'm sure it's okay. You can visit us on your website. It's named Powell, Powell365.com, and you can request a demo of our solution. We'll be happy to show you what you can do.
Okay, so thank you, Laurent. Thank you, everybody, for attending. We hope you found that useful. We'll circulate the slides in a couple of days, and I think we've also recorded this as well. If you want to go back and play any of those demos in slow-mo to see what we clicked on, then that'll be available too. Thanks again. Have a good day.
Thank you very much.